Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today I have 9.1 PTR, let's be honest here, essentially patch 9.1 Sims for all three Warlock specs. Now, if you're watching stream last week, we tried to run a handful of these, but certain APLs and things weren't totally working right. I contacted somebody who works in the AF one who has fixed it for us. The Demo one does indeed appear to be working properly using the right APL, and Destruction's Destruction. Destro's been fine since launch because it's 4 buttons, but the 4 buttons that it has are actually pretty good. Now, I've gotten a lot of questions about what spec is going to be the best in the raid, Mythic Plus, all that. We still need to determine that, depending on if there's more class tuning, whenever Heroic goes live, or just seeing how things are, however they shake out. With that being said, I do think that Destruction, spoilers ahead, I'll have a video out on this probably in a week or so, is universally the best spec in the new raid if you're going to be playing one, but we'll get a lot more into that with the Sims today. Now, any Week Wars profiles or add-ons you see in this video, you can grab for free off my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out, ask any questions anytime, feel free to do so. Also, heads up, the 9.1 Warlock Sanctum Domination spreadsheet should be going live this Sunday, or should be going public this Sunday, I should say. If you're interested in early access to that, the tier 3 fellow rank on my Patreon does indeed get early access to it. Feel free to check it out. With that being said, let's get into the video, starting off with the spec that I had to run the least for, at least sim-wise, Destruction. So, Destro Sims. Yes, ER does indeed mean eradication. There's only 4 sims that I ran for Destro, because for the most part, Destro is pretty just linear. It's pretty simple. You know what you're doing with it. Now, before we get into these, I will say we played Ashen Remains, we ended up playing Nias Tools Burgers here, and we played Soul Eater for all of these sims. Yes, I know that Duplicitous Havoc is better in 2 target, but it's very simple. Obviously, we are Warlocks. We can sort of realize that Duplicitous Havoc, hey, you play it in 2 targets. It makes sense. I'm not gonna run 8,000 different sims here, boys, because we know it's very simple. You play Duplicitous Havoc in 2 targets. Combusting Engine, gross, not where you want to be. Inferno Brand as your second potency slot, because you have to have one here, is okay. But the thing is, it's better with Reign of Chaos, which is not our best single target ability. Very close in 2 target. It's RNG based, and it's arguably even more RNG based with Reign of Chaos. So, not a huge fan of Inferno Brand. Soul Eater is actually pretty strong. So Soul Eater, Ashen Remains, your Set It and Forget It Conduit, and Nias Tools Burst. So getting back to the actual sims here. Eradication, Reverse Entropy, Cataclysm, Roaring Blaze, and Dark Soul. IC is indeed Internal Combustion. Let's put it this way. Internal Combustion is not going to be played if it's the same as Reverse Entropy. And thank God, because I hated the Eradication IC playstyle in Nihilotha. Some people liked it. I couldn't stand it. Expedient was fun. IC Eradication was miserable. Barring Eradication being like a couple hundred DPS ahead, maybe like 100 or so of Roaring Blaze, depending where it's at, it's not going to be played. The playstyle is so much more meticulous, tedious, and precise, letting your Immolate fall, clipping it for not full IC value, refreshing with Chaos Bolt travel time. If you see Entropy close to Internal Combustion, no one's going to play Internal Combustion unless they got something, yeah. So there's that. Now, we did Sim CDF here too. Eradication, Entropy, Cataclysm, Roaring Blaze, CDF, Dark Soul simming about, I don't know, about, what, 50 DPS better? 40. I can do math. 40 DPS better, give or take. I think Dark Soul's just better. Scaling wise, 2-minute CD wise, Ruby wise, I think Dark Soul's just more so where you want to be. Also, keep in mind for these CDF sims later on, this is going to sim like in 2 target, 3 target with CDF, with the actual targets being stacked and clumped together. So if it gains value in these sims, which I haven't looked at because I just had to rerun them all, keep that in mind. It probably is not as relevant as it seems. So moving down here, the highest flashover build we have is 6,709 DPS, which is about 69 DPS, 70 DPS below the Eradication build. Now, Eradication maintenance can be a bit more of a pain depending on what you're doing, all of that. Flashover also works well with Cinders. All of these sims are done with Cinders, by the way, every single one. I didn't play Wilfred's, I didn't mix things up. Cinders is great. It's your best raid legendary. It's very good in plus. You throw Wilfred's into these sims with Reign of Chaos and things, and it gets really complicated with kill times and all that. This is a 5 minute 1 target sim. So we just stuck with Cinders here. Madness is a possibility, but Madness is good on fights like Hunts of Baltimore, where you have 2 permanent targets, and hey, when Havoc comes back off cooldown, you hit it, and it's back on cooldown, where you can get that permanent value the entire fight. A great example of that is the 9 in Sanctum Domination. You can get insane madness value in phase 1 when there's 2 targets, 3 targets alive, but in phase 2 when it's patchwork, your legendary madness is nowhere near as good as Cinders. So I chose Cinders for all of this. I think you're gonna play Cinders almost all the raid tier, if not all of it, if you're playing Destro. So there's that. Flashover, the highest sim here, Entropy, Kata, Roaring Blaze, Dark Soul. What we expected, about 70 DPS lower than the Eradication version. Now, once again, you know, there's sims and there's actuality. There's actually like in-game play. Eradication, a bit more monotonous, tedious to maintain, but not really that hard either. You just sort of weave chaos bolts and maintain the buff here. Keep in mind, Eradication is stronger now. It buffs your Infernal's Immolation Aura, the melee damage, and your like imp or whatever pet you have out damage wise. That change was made about 2 months ago on PTR. So that's one of the reasons why you see Eradication gaining more value in these sims. Is it going to be played? We'll see. Flashover is also very synergistic with Cinders, but we'll see where that goes. Wouldn't be surprised to see this build seeing play in a lot of Sanctum. Eradication is nowhere near as big of a pain as Internal Combustion is. It's, well, honestly, it's sort of miserable. We can see here the highest build, Eradication, Entropy, Reign of Chaos. Reign is just RNG and not as consistent, as relevant as Roaring Blaze, especially when you're playing Cinders. So moving on to 2 targets here. 2 target 5 minutes. Once again, we did not sim with Duplicitous Havoc. If you want links to the sims, they're all down below. You can play with them yourself. I'm not running 8 million sims. We know 2 target. You play Duplicitous Havoc. Okay, ready? Here we go. 5 man, 2 targets. Eradication, Internal Combustion. Okay, don't get excited. Internal Combustion within 30 DPS, 2 target sim. You still play Entropy. It's fine. Eradication's ahead by about 150 DPS though in 2 target here, because I would say number 1, probably from the Eradication change, and number 2, just, well, 2 targets debuff with Eradication, Cinders, all of that. So there's that, but don't be worried about the IC thing here. For the most part, things look pretty similar. Something to keep an eye on here though, this build is Roaring Blaze based. This build is Reign of Chaos based. So there are 2 things here, and 2 targets always been sort of back and forth on what build is better. Reign of Chaos will have a higher upper maximum quartile sim or whatever, more often than not, due to the RNG that it brings. Sometimes you'll get insane Infernal procs on 2 targets, and that's great because they're stacked. You'll get insane Immolation Aura value. Targets aren't always stacked, so like Reign of Chaos might seem pretty valuable here, and it still sort of is, but I wouldn't worry about it a crazy amount. Now the next closest Roaring Blaze sim with Entropy is at 9,404, but once again, this is 2 target. I'm still not crazy concerned about IC, and looking at most of the fights this tier, like where you want to play Destro, they're not permanent 2 targets, which once again, same thing as Cinders. Like that's, I would say, more or less probably where you want IC. I don't want to be putting up a Havoc, immolating a mob, launching a bolt on Kel'Thuzad, and the thing's dead. It doesn't make any sense. So Eradication, Entropy, Kata is still, with Roaring Blaze, still my bet for 2 target in Sanctum of Domination. But once again, if you like Reign of Chaos, it does indeed gain value in 2 targets. More shard gen, more Infernals. Have fun. There you go. CDF here also, once again, these sims count targets as being stacked, so it's not as strong as it seems here. Dark Soul gains a lot in 2 target, especially when you factor that in here, which you can't do in sims. 3 target. So the 3 target sims here are going to be 1 minute, because it doesn't really gain a whole lot simming 3 targets for Destro and on a 5-minute scale. 3 targets sort of replicates trash packs a good bit. 1 minute, 3 boss targets. Eradication, Entropy, Kata, Reign of Chaos, Dark Soul. Basically the same as Flashover, Entropy. Now we're talking. Reign of Chaos, if you're trying to like replicate a trash pack in Mythic Plus, Reign of Chaos, Dark Soul, Kata, Flashover, Entropy, you go. In the end, there's a million different builds you can play in Plus with Infernal. You've got 2-minute builds, you've got Inferno, Cinder, or Inferno, Soul Conduit, Reign of Chaos, you've got Roaring Blaze still for consistency in Plus and better boss damage. But this is more or less what we know. Flashover, Entropy, Kata, Reign of Chaos, Dark Soul. Eradication being a little higher here, honestly, I go Flashover any day, especially over Eradication and Plus, but there's that. You do see CDF down here at 15.3. I'm just not the biggest fan. If we had run a Reign of Chaos CDF sim, it would probably be it would be 3rd here. It'd be 3rd. It might even be 2nd, but once again, keep in mind that, you know, it would be simming like CDF with 3 or 4 stack targets, which gains relevancy in Plus. But I still feel that Dark Soul overall is better when you have like 2 target packs, when you have bosses, all of that. I wouldn't fault you for playing CDF in Mythic Plus, but typically when you do, you more or less see it with Roaring Blaze. I've seen it with Reign, but if you're gonna play Reign, I feel like Reign, Dark Soul, 2-minute build is just more exciting. So this is still where I go with. Everything's pretty much on point. So I know the first thing I hear in the comment section, why no Reign of Chaos CDF sims? There you go. See, still not as good. like I said, the scaling value of Rain with Dark Soul, it really just Dark Soul also being more relevant. I feel in single target and in 2-target Havoc Cleave, it's just where you want to be. This is the 4-target 1-minute sim for Destro. Once again, if you want to play Rain or CDF, go for it. But CDF in this sim is going to sim all the targets being stacked, which you encounter a lot more. And plus, I'll give you that. But at times, there's still priority mobs or that with small ads being spread off to the side. At times, you pull multiple packs. So I still feel overall, I enjoy the 2-minute build. But either way, I would look at Dark Soul over CDF and Plus. But for what it's worth, Destro hasn't really changed a whole lot. The builds that we know are good are still pretty much good, outside of Eradication gaining value, which we knew about from, I don't know, a couple months ago. Destro seems fine. Seems good. I'm down for it. Okay, so the Affliction sims, just talking about the build briefly, highlighting what we played before we get into all of them. Once again, all the links to all the sims are indeed down in the video description or comment section. With that being said, for all these sims, we played Malignancy, we played Withering Bolt, and we played Soul Eater. I have simmed Soul Eater and Focus Malignancy. They are actually very close. Soul Eater sims, I believe, 30 DPS less, as long as things are correct right now, than Malignancy, partially due to the Rapture nerfs, also partially due to Malignancy itself being absolutely gutted. So I feel if you're going to be Mythic Plus, the build I'm probably going to look at is either Soul Eater, Rolling Agony, and either Withering Bolts or Malignancy. If you're playing Siphon Life, I probably want Bolt. If you're playing Writhe, you probably play Malignancy. Either way, let's get into the sims. The talents change a bit, but you'll see that here. Once again, there's a lot of them. Number 1, these are the most up-to-date, most correct single target sims out there. 6,167 DPS. This is Drain Soul, Siphon Life, Phantom Singularity, Haunt, Dark Soul, and Malefic Wrath. Now, this is pure single target. Keep in mind, Malefic Wrath only works in single target. The dots on other targets don't affect Wrath's increase, thing weird along those lines. Synergy is close. It's actually closer than I thought it would be, playing the same build, within about 35 DPS of Wrath. And this is a very, very good thing, because Malefic Wrath is miserable to play with. It feels horrendous. So thankfully, the sims aren't as skewed towards Malefic Wrath as I thought they'd be. Now, I do want to say I was told by Father that these sims are not 100% optimized around Withering Bolt, but they're close and it shouldn't make that much of a difference. So seeing synergy this close is good for multiple reasons. Number 1, if you want to play AF single target, you can still play synergy. It's fine. Number 2, AF is really only good, spoilers ahead, at council-based cleave, and Wrath is dead in council fights for the most part. But synergy gains a lot of value. PS3 plus targets. Drain Soul, Siphon Life, PS, Haunt, Dark Soul. This is synergy. This is Malefic Wrath. This is Decaying Soul Satchel, the Night Fate Legendary. It's important to keep an eye on this. A 5-minute sim, 1 boss target. Nightfall is here. This build was actually really strong in early testing when Withering Bolt was very good, and we were playing actually I think Shadow's Embrace over Haunt because of, well, more cast. Less Haunt. Not having to cast Haunt means just more Shadow Bolt cast, and Shadow Bolt's applied through, or Shadow's Embrace is applied through Shadow Bolt, but that's fallen off a bit here. Either way, not incredibly high DPS wise, but higher than the sims we had run a few days ago. 2 targets. Synergy jumps ahead, but look at the jump Decaying Soul Satchel makes in relative DPS from the worst to the best. I mean, look at this. Like, look where it's at here. Satchel, like, look how low it is. It makes a massive jump in relevancy as far as legendaries are concerned here. This is 2 targets for 5 minutes. Keep in mind, 2 targets, 10% crit, 10% haste, and the haste on Soul Satchel is multiplicative, which stacks with Lust, which stacks with Dark Soul, which stacks with other random effects. The crit is not, but the haste is. Satchel gains a crazy amount of value here, which is really cool to see. Synergy ahead. It does have Nightfall here. I would assume if we simmed Satchel with Nightfall, it'd probably be a little higher here too. Nightfall gains, the change in Shadowlands is that Nightfall, the more corruptions you have active, the higher chance to proc Nightfall. And with Withering Bolt and Nightfall and more corruptions, it sort of makes sense that it pulls ahead a bit here, but we also didn't sim Shadow's Embrace with Drain Soul. We could have, but I don't have 18 hours to run these sims. There's a million tiny little iterations and tweaks you can do to run them, but I ran the most realistic ones, most general ones, the ones that would answer most questions. So important here, Wrath drops way off. You're doing damage to 1 target with it. So synergy gains a huge amount of value, which is great because F is council based. Decaying Soul Satchel. Let's go to three target sims for 5 minutes because it's a council spec. Decaying Soul Satchel. Now this is stacked, or stacked enough where you can get value out of DSS, Decaying Soul Satchel. But man, the value you get out of it is insane. 5 minutes, 3 boss targets, synergy, wrath, and wrath. So TLDR, synergy is probably still your best option for AF if you're playing it in the settings that it should be played. But the value that Decaying Soul Satchel gets here is just utterly insane. So I wanted to take this a bit more. Still playing Siphon Life here. We do have Siphon versus Wrath and Agony Sims towards the end here as well. I did want to look a little bit more in depth with this. So this is a 1 minute, 1 boss target sim, more or less looking at bosses in Mythic Plus, single target base, whatever. Decaying Soul Satchel. We also threw the Sow the Seeds build in here in these sims. So this is all PS stuff. Here, Sow the Seeds. So you can see this is basically the same build here, playing PS over Sow. So Sow is about 1,000 DPS loss, roughly. It seems Sims might be a little funky with it in single target and stuff, but it's a substantial loss because no PS, so no extra PS, just value that it brings itself with its pulsing damage. And it's not also, it's also 1 less dot for Rapture. So Rapture hits less. It's a huge loss. But if you made the choice to play Sow, you know you're probably going to be in a pretty heavy AoE setting. If you look at a 2 target setting for 1 minute though, keep an eye on this. Decaying Soul Satchel, it jumps to number 1. It's the multiplicative haste stacking of hitting 2 targets with Satchel in a 1 minute sim. A 1 minute sim will hold your Dark Soul in every effect for this sim. So this is going to incorporate Dark Soul with DSS multiplicative haste stacking. It's so incredibly strong. It's even stronger than the 5 minute sim we ran here, because the 5 minute sim had synergy ahead by about 20 DPS. This sim though has it ahead, has DSS ahead by about 40, which is about 70 from the other sim. It's really, really strong. And depending on the fight in plus, sure, on tyrannical weeks, it might not be your best option when it comes to Mythic Plus. Maybe certain builds you want to mix up, play Destro or AF or Demo. Maybe it's even worth it regardless. The Sow the Seeds build, still lower, but you know what? It's not necessarily as low as it was before. 7.6k to 9.1. You're losing about, I don't know, about 1400 DPS here. So it's still a loss, but once again, that huge AoE damage. Moving on. 3 targets. Oh, so the Seeds is gaining some value. It's slowly rising here. I think a lot of it, once again, is also because of Decaying Soul Satchel, multiplicative haste scaling. 4 targets, 1 minute. Yeah, you're playing. Sow overtakes everything. Sow is just so incredibly strong. And with DSS and the stacking that they have, the build is just really, really, really good. So in AoE, in 4 target plus settings, so it's not target cap. It's soft cap at 20, which, I mean, okay, you're not pulling 20 mobs. If you are, every class is basically soft cap. That's something at that level, I'm pretty sure. So Decaying Soul Satchel, very, very strong. And like I said, even in single target, it's not the best, but it's not terrible. And having that multiplicative stacking around is actually really strong for it. Questions about Siphon Life versus Wrath and Agony. Here is a single target 5 minute 1 boss sim. Wrath and Agony, we're playing synergy for all of these. I didn't play different effects. I played Wrath Consumption, or if I played Malefic Wrath, it would add value to Siphon Life, vice versa. This is synergy in relevant settings, because you're not going to play Malefic Wrath in 2 target and 3 target settings. Wrath is about 173 DPS behind Siphon Life in pure single target. In 2 target, it's still about 170 DPS behind. It closes the gap a little bit, give or take, some RNG here, but 3 target is where Wrath pulls ahead by a good bit. 5 minutes, 3 boss targets. This is 5 minutes, 2 boss targets. 5 minute 3, Wrath does indeed pull ahead, gains a considerable amount of value here. I think a lot of this is due to Siphon Life, juggling, Rapture value, all that as well. And if you go to 4 targets, well, this is 3 targets, sorry. This is 1 minute, 3 targets. If you go to 4 targets, Wrath and Agony, Siphon Life, it's still ahead by a good bit. There's a bit of give and take here, I assume. RNG in 4 targets, random pulls, scaling this and that, but 3+ targets, Wrath pulls ahead. And depending what you're playing in plus, Wrath will get you more value the longer Trash is alive. But Siphon Life in 3+ target settings. But Siphon Life will bring more boss damage, more priority add damage, more 2 target boss damage. And playing a build like this in Mythic Plus brings a huge amount of reach, because half the time we're barely even putting Siphon Life up on Trash packs, unless it's 1 target, 2 target. Just casting your seed, putting agonies up, a UA, a haunt, just spamming seed. Then you get to a boss, you shift into more of a single target build. You open up with your UA into haunt, agony, corruption, siphon, and go from there. You might not have your PS, but you still have more of a single target profile, and Withering Bolt is also there to prop you up a little bit, depending on what you're playing. So like I said in the previous video, the AF sims, like AoE, extremely impressive. The single target, not incredibly strong. We'll compare all 3 specs at the end here, but AF Very good in AOE. Single target, not the worst. Not the best, not the worst. Council base, but still, I'd say the weakest of all three specs in single target, barring the 1 minute burst windows that it has. Saving the best for last, we have Demonology Sims. So, Demo Sims. We played Born of Blood and Tyrant Soul in every single sim. Now, you'll see CS, and you'll see, what's this thing called? FC. CS is Carnivorous Stalkers, FC is Fel Commando. We swapped these conduits around a bunch in sims. We played a bunch of different talent configurations too. These are going to be the most in-depth sims, are hard to understand, so I'll try and guide y'all through it. Okay. This, first of all, is using Demo Time from the Warlock Discord's APL. It's the only one that works for, I guess, it's the, most generally accepted one that works for Wilfords and things. Why it hasn't been pushed to actual live sims, I have no idea. Either way, getting into it. So 7,148, obviously the highest single target simming spec we've had so far. Demonic Strength, Demonic Calling, Summon Vile Fiend, Grimoire Felguard, Demonic Consumption. This is I expected this to be the highest spec out there in single target. It's Decon. Vile Fiend, Grimoire, too good to get rid of because you play one build because Decon is so incredibly strong and they don't want to fix Portal after years of feedback, and Sack Souls just sucks. The interesting thing here though is that Carnivorous Stalkers is simming higher than Fel Commando, playing Demonic Strength nonetheless. Now, if you look at the maximum overall sim here, min, mean, max 8.1, and the max on this actually being 7.9. I think a lot of this is just due to Carnivorous Stalkers RNG. Some of like the higher sims, sort of similar to like the sims you saw in Eternal Palace, where you're playing VOP Major. If you got the right procs, your Tyrant came out, like if you proc Tyrants back to back at the right time, you do 10% more than everybody else in the raid combined. And if you didn't get any procs, you were below the tank in damage. Not kidding. Now, it's nowhere near that swingy with this, but I think the higher end here, what's propping this up, is just really good, really good Carnivorous Stalkers reprocs. Either way, playing Demonic Strength, still pretty impressive. Moving on here, the only difference here, Fel Commando. It's close enough too. Fel Commando's within 20 DPS. That's, the margin of error is 7 DPS, but that's more or less negligible. Unless you're really trying to min-max on like a Guardian, the first one's Patchwork Bite is coming tier. And if that was the case, I probably play Fel Commando for the consistency anyway, so there's that. Moving on, Demonic Strength Calling from the Shadows. Now, keep in mind, From the Shadows has been changed in 9.1 to now affect your Tyrant's Demon Fire damage. This is one of the reasons as to why this build here, whether you're playing this or this, has gained a lot of value in Mythic Plus, and we'll see that being reflected in the Sims in a minute here. But FTS is now indeed affecting Demon Fire damage. So getting back to the Sims here, Strength, Calling, FTS, Grimoire, Felguard. So still playing Grimoire, just swapping out Vile Fiend for FTS. About 6.9k, which is what, about, I guess about 250 off of the highest sim. It's actually really good to see, because I assume you're playing some version of this build. Oh, this build right here, Dreadlash, Demonic Calling, FTS, Grimoire, or at least potentially looking at playing it in Plus. And seeing this build only 300 DPS off of the highest single target simming build is actually really cool. Both these playing Carnivorous Stalkers. Carnivorous is incredibly synergistic with Dreadlash, with FTS. Your dogs rechomp, they reapply FTS. With Dreadlash, like they'll AoE it. It's very good. And seeing it only 300 DPS off of being like the best single target spec out there will bring a lot more consistent AoE. Is very good. Really impressive. Down here, DSDC, FTS. This is Strength with FTS, Grimoire, Felguard, Fel Conduit. Sort of like hybrid builds. I don't expect these to be very good. We knew these two would be your go-to here. Summon Vile Fiend, Grimoire, just best for decon and pure single target. But FTS, bringing up a bit of value. 5 minutes, 1 boss target. Moving on to 2 targets. Oh, Dreadlash, decon, or Dreadlash Calling, FTS makes a huge jump. This build right here, the Dreadlash FTS build, is right here in single target. This is the one I'm talking about. Dreadlash, decon, FTS, Grimoire, Felguard, DC. It jumps to being your highest overall option in stacked 2 target cleave. We haven't even gotten to the 3 and 4 target sims, and this build's already jumped. Carnivorous Stalkers is buffed. Technically your dogs are buffed in 9.0.5, but Carnivorous Stalkers, Dreadlash buffs, all the synergy it has, it's incredibly strong in 2 target. Now you might be wondering also, why didn't we sim Grim Inquisitors? It's coming. I simmed it later on. Don't worry, it's fine. We'll get to it. So gains a crazy amount of value here. Very strong. But right here, also pretty close. Demonic Strength, Vile Fiend, Grimoire, Felguard, Fell Commando, the pure single target build, behind by about 141 DPS, so not bad. But looking at how much value it gains in 2 target, looking at 3 targets. Okay, now it's ahead of the pure single target build by 400 DPS in 3 target. And this is a 1 minute sim, to be fair, because there's not really a reason simming 3 targets with Demo for 5 minutes, because you're not really playing Demo on anything but 1 target anyways. So this is more of like a trash pack and Mythic Plus kind of thing. But 400 more DPS favoring this build, while also being within 400 DPS in single target, is very, very solid. 4 target. It's ahead by about 825 DPS over the course of 1 minute. Now, once again, these are all playing Wilfrids on a 1 minute sim. If this build was about, if this is like a minute 20 sim, this build would probably be able to rip off another Tyrant. They both would, but this build will gain more value because of Vile Fiend and Grimoire. I guess you wouldn't have Grimoire for it, but you have a Vile Fiend. So either way, still very solid. Still a very good option, the pure single target build in 4 target, naturally due to this Demo's AOE profile. But you might be asking, why didn't we sim Grim Inquisitors? I didn't have an answer for you. Really, I was being lazy, but last time I made this video, everybody complained, why is there no Grim Inquisitor? So, well, here we are. We'll do it. Single target, 5 minutes, 1 boss target. Grim is about 1,000 DPS lower. Wilfrid's just good in single target. There's not much to it. It's what it is. So that's just that. And once again, this is all based off of Demo times APL from the Warlock Discord. If you want it, I'll have a link down below. Thank you again for the APL. I appreciate it. Either way, so 5 minutes, 1 boss target, 2 targets. Keep an eye on Grim here, because everything else is the same for the most part. Once again, Dreadlash FTS jumps to #1 here. Grim is gaining some ground. It jumps a little bit. It goes from being about 1,000 DPS loss to about, well, let's see, about, 423, give or take. Not too bad, and stacked 2 targets. Moving on, though. This is where the 3 target sims kick in at 1 minute. Oh, Grim is just ahead. It's just ahead. Now, like I said, this is a 1 minute. This is actually 2 targets for 1 minute. I'm sorry. This is a 1 minute sim. Keep in mind, the Grim Inquisitor's build is not playing Wilfrids, so this won't Tyrant until probably, I would say, about the minute 45 mark, if you're setting up your Tyrant and your opener and all that stuff, because you don't Tyrant right on pull, right? These builds are all going to be Tyranting within probably 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds of this sim, give or take. So it's why fight duration is so incredibly important and impactful in Wilfrid sims. But what you can take away from this is that the Grim Inquisitor's build, if you're not like getting full, it's consistent. It's more consistent damage. If you're not getting full Tyrant value, Grim is very strong. But if you're getting full Tyrant value, I probably would lean a bit more towards Wilfrids. Either way, Grim is very strong in consistent DPS. 1 minute, 2 target. 1 minute, 3 target. Grim has pulled ahead even more by about 1,400 DPS here over the Dreadlash Demonic Calling FTS build. And notice over here, the Dreadlash Demonic Calling build in 2 target, 1 minute. This build's sitting, Dreadlash Demonic Calling FTS, sitting about here, right? Still a bit behind the Demonic Strength, Vile Fiend, all that build. But in 3 target, 1 minute, that build also pulls ahead. So it's unanimous. The Dreadlash FTS build is incredibly good in AoE. There's that. I did not sim with Soul Conduit for this, by the way. I could have, but I just like Grim more. If you want to sim for it, go for it. Down below. But yeah, 3 targets. 4 targets. It's ahead by 2k DPS. Like, the build's really, really strong. Once again, these builds will be ripping off a Tyrant in probably about 20 seconds here, give or take. This one probably about 45. So for what it's worth, that's that. This build looks very, very strong in AoE. And once again, it's not even too bad in single target. You're losing about 300, 400 DPS, but you're getting a very large AoE damage profile. And in Mythic Plus, that's incredibly relevant. So with all that being said, let's compare the 3 specs in single target. So without further ado, from what I've talked to from all of the APL writers and things for Warlock, Destro, Demo, and F, this is the most accurate APL, or I guess sims for single target heading into Sanctum of Domination. Demo on top at 7.146, followed by Destro at 6,700 and Affliction at 6,173. We know Af's single target damage is very bad. We accept that. We've moved on from that. Honestly, it's a little better than I thought it would be, but it's still not very good. Destro has a respectable damage profile on single target. And the thing is, Destro brings a lot on cleave fights. Look at Kel'Thuzad, look at Sylvanas, look at the 9, look at 9, 10, 8 out of 10 fights this tier Destro can be very good on. Even the Patrick ones, like Terra Grew and Guardian, the first ones. If you're not looking to min-max by playing Demo on them, Destro's fine. It's behind by what, about 500 DPS, 438 give or take. It's still very, very good. Demo's your best single target spec. It's really cool because we haven't really had a tier where Demo's been your best it's been your best spec without having anything weird and gimmicky going on. The black book thing did not work out today on stream. It's fine. Book didn't work out. It's okay. So this is not a black book sim. Don't worry about that. This is just Demo with Demonic Strength, Calling, Biofeed, Grimoire, Decon. This is Carnivorous Stalkers. If you want to play Fel Commando for more consistency, it was about 20 DPS less. So not a big deal. Still ahead. Still your best single target spec out there. Destro, once again, solid, fine, not too bad. I didn't run 2 target sims and 3 target sims here. Destro is going to be your best 2 target option. Aff is going to be close in 3 target, but the thing is, like, the fights this tier, if you're going to play Aff, or like Kel'Thuzad, where you might end up playing Wrath of Consumption. But the thing is, that fight's buggy and half the ads don't actually count as dying when they die, so you don't get the actual death effect. It could change, hopefully it does, but at this point, this is what Warlock's looking at from what I understand, from what I've seen going in the Nathria. Now, these sims still might be off a little bit. This is all using my gear from retail, which is more or less like this gear at 226. I didn't upgrade the eye levels, so I'd say if you're trying to make a comparison from one class to the next, oh, Shadow Priest is at 18k, which they probably are anyways, but you know, if Boomkin's at 8.5k and Hunter's at 7.6, keep in mind there's no universal pool of people that's run sim saying, okay, we're all going to sim at this eye level with these conduits being empowered, not empowered, different eye levels. So keep that in mind. Okay. Like Demo's single target is very good. Destro solid. Aff might need some help, but that's something in itself. So trying to make comparisons right now, it's not going to be very good. There's too many borrowed power systems in game, too many people that aren't simming the same thing. So don't worry about that. But TLDR, Lock looks good heading in the Nathria. And by Nathria, I mean Sanctum. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, that's about it, boys. Hopefully this clarifies and helps you with the million questions about Sims and APLs and where Demo and Destro and Aff all stand heading into Sanctum of Domination at 9.1. Now keep in mind, once again, these things could change. They're not all set in stone. Blizzard could push a fix tomorrow to buff Destro and Aff and make it worse than Demo, and who knows. But as of this point, it is June 12th at 5 in the morning. That's what things look like. So let me know what you guys think of these results and things in the comment section below. Any questions, drop them down there as well. I will be sure to get back to you. Once again, I will have links to the Sims and the APLs also in the comment section or pinned there somewhere in the video description, somewhere down below. Thank you again. Demo time for the APL, father-daughter for the Aff APL. Much love. Thank you for all the help with the Sims and getting that all set up because, you know, Florida brain, Florida man. Yeah. Once again, thank you to all my patrons for the support. Thank you so much, guys. The 9.1 Sanctum Domination spreadsheet should indeed be releasing this Sunday, like publicly, roughly, as long as I get everything done with it. But for the most part, it's there. So we're looking forward to that video. If you guys are interested in seeing more WoW content, helps support the channel, be sure to smash the like and subscribe buttons below. Helps out a lot. Thanks again, dudes, and I will catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.